Congress is going to be back in session next month in September, but both chambers will only have until September 30th to pass 12 spending bills. If they don't, there's going to be another government shutdown. That is not a lot of time, and it's been clear that both parties right now are far apart on a budget agreement to this point. I want to welcome back in on the Hill this Sunday morning Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger of Virginia to talk more about this. Congresswoman, good to see you this morning. When we mention government shutdown, I can already hear people's eyes rolling up in the back of their heads saying, not again, not this again. But obviously, with Republicans in control of the House now and the Democrats controlling the Senate, there have been loggerheads about spending. How likely is it that we could be in this position again in a little more than 30 days?
Well, we shouldn't even be talking about the possibility of a government shutdown, frankly, though I'm glad that we are, because part of avoiding it is by being clear about the threats that exist. So I thank you for highlighting this real threat that exists about a month away. I represent federal employees, I represent government contractors, and I represent an economy that gets decimated in the event of a government shutdown. And avoiding one continues to be my top priority. So what needs to happen? Members of Congress in the House and in the Senate need to be clear about what our parameters are. There was a deal that set spending limits with the Deficit Reduction Act that we passed a number of months back, committing to spending levels of a certain level. Democrats and Republicans made that commitment. And now we need House leadership on the Republican side of the aisle, Speaker McCarthy, to bring forth bills that are consistent with that agreement. They need to be broadly bipartisan as they come out of committee, which thus far seems the trend that we will likely be on. But those bills are the bills that need the vote on the floor. We cannot allow for the right wing of the Republican Party, the Freedom Caucus, to add what are essentially poison pills in our appropriations bills, because these bills have to get through the House, through the Senate, and to the president's desk, and they need to do so very, very quickly.
One of the big questions about all this is whether or not Speaker McCarthy, if he announces and agrees to something, whether he can deliver it. The margins are very tight in his caucus, as we saw back in January with the marathon vote to actually get him elected. Do you have any confidence that if there is agreement worked out between Democratic leaders and Republican leaders, that the Republicans in the House will be able to deliver on what they promise?
The bills that are brought forth, what needs to happen is they have to be broadly bipartisan. Certainly as a Democrat, I recognize that with Republican leadership, I may not love every aspect of an appropriations bill they bring forward, but they need to bring forward responsible bills that will get a very robust number of Democrats and Republicans. What the Speaker can't do is live in eternal fear of the Freedom Caucus kind of revolting against him and revolting against his speakership. Reasonable bills that are bipartisan out of committee will have the support of the kind of meaty middle of those of us who are focused on governance and keeping the government running and funded.
I want to ask you a little bit about politics now, because obviously, you know, we are always in this election cycle. There have been reports of late that you have not made much of a secret of the fact that you're maybe thinking about running for governor of Virginia. Would you make a good governor of Virginia, Congresswoman?
I remain committed to the people that I represent across this month of August, when we've spent time across our districts during District Week, our District Month. I've been focused on the Farm Bill priorities that the producers and farmers I represent have. I have visited small businesses, large businesses, spent time in roundtables hearing directly from constituents. I am certainly doing good work as a representative because of my engagement across the communities that I represent. I'm proud that I have been named the most bipartisan member of Congress from the Virginia delegation, and the second most common ground seeking elected official in the country. And that's across governors, senators, and House members. So I'm proud of the work that I have done, and I continue to be focused on doing good work for the people that I represent.
Do you have concerns, though, about the direction the state has taken under Governor Youngkin over the last 2 years in Republican leadership?
You know, I have real concerns about the fact that as it relates to, you know, what's happening across the Commonwealth that everything has become, hyper politicized. I represent communities where there have been, book bans. I represent communities where teachers are quitting in significant numbers. I have heard the stories from educators of why it is that they are leaving the profession, or at least leaving the county where they have worked for many years. And it is incredibly important that moving forward, we focus on the 2023 elections because we have extraordinary candidates with a diverse scope of background who are focused on strengthening the economy, strengthening our educational system.
As always is the case on these Zoom calls, I apologize. We're out of time once again. We thank you so much for joining us this week on The Hill. Fox News Sunday with Shannon Breed coming up next.